Guys, this is too intense. What might be the biggest financial scandal in US history is about to be uncovered. Specifically, the gold reserves in Fort Knox are to be checked to see if there is any gold there at all. And many people actually assume that there is no gold contained here. The gold is now causing massive panic, and this inspection is taking place as part of the evaluation of the strategic reserve in the USA. Elon Musk and Donald Trump are both pushing forward here. Elon Musk was the first to be asked about it. Now we see an entire article where it is even confirmed that a review is clearly being sought within the Trump administration. And there are already the first discussions happening. Guys, that would be so intense. I mean, on one hand, it could lead to gold massively collapsing, the trust in gold being lost, and then also among the people. It becomes clear why, in a thick digital world, Bitcoin is simply superior to gold. On the other hand, the Trump administration and Elon Musk could also be responsible for securing gold in the USA if it really comes out that, hey, everything is going great at Fort Knox. Here we have a well-audited gold reserve and all the gold stocks that we claim to own. They are all located here in Fort Knox, but there are definitely many points suggesting that a massive fraud scandal could potentially be uncovered here at Fort Knox. Because, I mean, why do they have gold here, but haven't conducted audits or inspections for almost 50 years, and keeps people in the dark here? This could now come to an end, and it's an absolute shocker. Elon Musk could trigger an absolute shockwave here. We are now going to look at this in detail. I briefly reported on this yesterday, but now spectacular backgrounds have emerged that we need to look at. And if you ask me, these kinds of headlines are always the reason why many people criticize gold in favor of Bitcoin, because secretly, they know, hey, you can't really verify it. In the end, it's a belief in someone, some custodian, who is supposedly storing gold bars. But we don't even know if the gold bars actually exist. Here it says, breaking news, representatives of the Trump administration have discussed the possibility of auditing the gold reserves of Fort Knox. And now it goes even further. This is much more intense. The US government claims it owns almost 5,000 tons of gold, but the gold reserves of Fort Knox have not been audited since 1974, so for almost 50 years. No one has seen any of it. It's time for Elon and Dodge to conduct a full audit of every single ounce of gold. It's our money, and this is posted here by the US Homeland Security News. Elon Musk has already commented on this here on Twitter, or rather, on X, and he says here, isn't it checked every year? And then Zero Dodge says, yes, it should actually be checked every year. And now this has triggered the whole uproar here, as Elon Musk apparently found out, hey, Fort Knox is not being checked. There's no one who checks every year to see if the gold is still there. And now there are also a lot of conspiracy theories. That means there is one conspiracy theory that there is massively more paper Bitcoin than actual gold. I mean, the conspiracy theory, it's not such a big conspiracy theory. The question is just how high the number is here. Is it 100-fold? Is it 80-fold? Is it 600-fold? There are various numbers. The next conspiracy theory is that the USA has sold all its gold and the gold is gone. That's one conspiracy theory, that there's no gold left. The next conspiracy theory is that while the gold is still in Fort Knox, the gold no longer belongs to the USA, but to some other nations, yet it's stored in Fort Knox. And so the USA has leverage over other nations because they simply couldn't deliver the gold potential. That would be the next story. Then there are 1,000 other stories. We don't need to open up the whole swirl and conspiracy theory bubble here. There are now many people who say, for example, yes, a strategic Bitcoin reserve is being introduced so that the gold scam can be covered up, allowing them to say, okay, we sell all our gold reserves, move into Bitcoin, but the gold reserves don't actually exist. We simply sell paper gold, buy Bitcoin with it, and then we're well positioned again, and have something physically backed again, and have basically gotten through the scam once. But we don't want to dive too deeply into speculation here. Instead, we want to look at the facts. There is a news article that has made headlines, which contains some important information. It says here, first at the top, the Trump administration plans to audit the US gold reserves in Fort Knox. And as mentioned, the whole thing was fueled by Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, with the Department of Government Efficiencies, is, of course, very much involved. It then says here, the Trump administration is quietly advancing plans to audit the US gold reserves in Fort Knox as part of a groundbreaking initiative to establish a strategic asset reserve that is intended to serve as a hedge against economic volatility and global de-dollarization. And part of this strategic asset reserve also includes Bitcoin. I just noticed, earlier I mentioned in the intro, that it is part of the strategic Bitcoin reserve to audit the gold bars here. But here it says, part of the strategic asset reserve. But part of the strategic asset reserve could also clearly be Bitcoin here, or should actually be Bitcoin here if this goes through. And if they then decide, okay, after evaluating the strategic Bitcoin reserve, that Bitcoin is now also part of the strategic asset reserve here. Several high-ranking sources within the Treasury Department and the White House confirmed this exclusively to news. So we already have confirmations that this is not just hot air, but there are actual meetings, there is exchange, discussions are happening here about how we can do this. I mean, it has probably been discussed for a very, very long time, for 50 years already, but someone must have known something was amiss here, because if there was nothing to hide here, then one could simply say, okay, hey, we have such and such amount of tons of gold. This could potentially even strengthen the US position if they could say, hey, we have 5,000 tons of gold, and they're all right here. Look at our audits. On the other hand, there's also the problem that if you conduct an audit, you have to trust the person doing the audit. That means even if you conduct an audit here, you still can't be sure that the gold is actually in the vault. Theoretically, you would have to look at it with your own eyes, and you would have to do it in real time because it could be that the gold is there when you do the audit, and 2 weeks later, the gold could be flown out somewhere in the world, or who knows what else. And this is exactly the advantage of Bitcoin, which is why many people say, hey, gold was brilliant 5,000 years ago. But in the digital world, we simply need a resource, something that is limited but can be audited anytime, anywhere. That's Bitcoin here, meaning we can audit Bitcoin at any time. And it also costs certain millions of US taxpayer dollars to conduct such an audit, what they are essentially doing here with huge effort, with huge discussions, fanfare. What goes along with it, any Bitcoin owner can do at any time now. You can check at any time how much Bitcoin. Of the total holdings you have here, how many Bitcoins are currently in circulation, how many Bitcoins are yet to be mined, what is the monetary policy. All of this can be traced. And with gold, it's just not that easy. And that's why many people say gold has failed, because we need trusted intermediaries here again. That means gold is good in the physical world when there is no digital connection, when it is not traded digitally, then we also don't have a trust issue here. But as soon as we have the interface to a digital world here, then we have a big, big trust problem. And that's why it's said that this unprecedented step, which is still being discussed internally, would be the first full audit of the US gold reserves valued at $388 billion in over 50 years. It is directly related to Trump's renewed efforts to strengthen the economic sovereignty of the USA through tangible assets. And this again speaks in favor of Bitcoin. It's about creating tangible assets because, as I've explained to you before, when you create a self and wealth fund or a strategic Bitcoin reserve, it strengthens the US dollar because other nations realize, hey, damn, they really have valuable things on their balance sheet. This is also what many experts always assume, which then triggers hyperinflation when people simply realize, hey, okay, this paper money, but on the other side, there's still a certain balance sheet. And the balance sheet still has some valuable bonds, real estate, gold. In the future, maybe even Bitcoin. And when people realize, hey, there are a lot of valuable bonds and assets, Bitcoin, gold, and everything there, then people also have trust in the money. But when people realize, hey, they only have junk bonds left, they're just buying up the trash. Assets they have are even losing value now, then people lose trust in the money, and then hyperinflation hits. And that's what they want to achieve with Bitcoin. That's what they want to achieve with gold. The aim here is simply to strengthen the US dollar. This means that with Bitcoin and gold, it's not about pushing gold or Bitcoin, but ultimately it's about using Bitcoin and gold to further push the US dollar. The US dollar is the highest priority, and many Bitcoin enthusiasts misunderstand this. They then think, okay, Donald Trump wants to push Bitcoin or something like that. No, he doesn't want to push Bitcoin, nor does he want to push gold. He wants to push the US dollar. And now he's basically playing the game. Either he weakens the US dollar because it turns out there's no gold here, then the US dollar will also be weakened. Because then it suddenly comes out, hey, there aren't that many valuable things in the balance sheet. On the other hand, if things go well and he can honestly make it clear, hey, there really are 5,000 tons of gold here, then he will strengthen the US dollar. And if he then also brings Bitcoin into the mix, he will further strengthen the US dollar. So it's definitely a very, very bold move he's making here, but definitely a step that fits now. That means the logical consequence of what Dodge is doing is simply to check the gold reserves here. They are checking the USA, they are checking the IRS. They are checking all the ministries in the USA. They want to audit the Federal Reserve, which has been an absolute no-go for many, many years. And now they want to audit Fort Knox. It almost doesn't get any more intense than this. Donald Trump is really pushing through here in an F-Wera style. Really crazy. I mean, I do find some things about Donald Trump really worth criticizing, but things like this, I just celebrate when scams are uncovered, the frauds, even though I'm not necessarily saying it's a scam. But it's to be expected that not everything is 100% as smooth as it's being sold to us. And it's just a bombshell when, after 50 years, it comes out that, hey, we've been lied to for 50 years. And most people even knew they were being lied to, but they could never confirm it. It's like there is a truth, but you could never bring the truth to the table because there was no auditor for it. And this is now the change that could massively propel Bitcoin forward, which can either support the US dollar or further weaken it, and really heralds a turning point here because people are realizing, hey, what's happening here and what's being strongly debated and where people are now questioning things, this is possible with Bitcoin by default. And it will drive even more people to Bitcoin because they simply understand that Bitcoin is the better digital gold here. if you can even make that comparison, because Bitcoin is much more than digital gold. The properties are simply so superior to gold when you look at censorship resistance, or when you consider transportability, divisibility, and even scarcity. Bitcoin is just far superior. And also, quite clearly, the verifiability. It further states that insiders reveal that the audit not only serves transparency, but is a prerequisite for a strategic reserve plan by Trump. The goal is to use undervalued federal gold to secure new financial instruments, including gold-backed government bonds. So, they are assuming here that the gold is in possession, and they want to use it now for strengthening. It also says in the quote, "You cannot create an economic shield of the 21st century without knowing exactly what's in the vault," says a senior advisor of the Ministry of Finance anonymously. It's not just about counting gold bars, it's about unlocking trillions in dormant value. The assumption here is that you can truly strengthen the balance and not deter the whole thing by simply having unrealized gold bars, profits, I don't know how to put it, just slumbering in the vault. And the urgency is also addressed here, that the exploding gold price and the aggressive measures of the BRIC countries, which are also building up gold reserves, are practically pushing the USA to conduct these audits now. We see that here too, the global game theory with Bitcoin is similar. Other nations, like Abu Dhabi, which are adopting Bitcoin, are also pushing the USA to further invest in Bitcoin. And it's the same with gold. It is even said here that conspiracy theories have been widespread for years, fueled by puzzling IMF reports and public demands for transparency. Most recently by Elon Musk, who called for blockchain-level transparency for federal gold. This happened as part of his Dodge Transparency project in connection with Trump. So Elon Musk is already riding the wave here, wanting to make all government expenditures and revenues transparent with blockchain. And if the gold reserves are not checked, then it doesn't fit together at all. That's why I also say here, the real initiator is truly Elon Musk. Since 75% of Americans support an audit, the government sees a political opportunity to tackle what an advisor calls the ultimate symbol of deep state opacity. And now here come the risks that have been addressed. It states here, an IMF report from 1999 confirmed that central banks secretly lend gold. That's exactly what I meant before. Insiders warned that a portion of the US gold reserves might be involved in opaque swaps. A revelation that could shake the markets. If even just 10% of the gold in Fort Knox is encumbered, it would be an economic Armageddon, warned a former Fed official. And that's also what I've already said, this could trigger an absolute shockwave here, both for Bitcoin and for gold. The Chinese state newspaper Global Times recently jabbed that America's gold might only exist on paper. So you can see that not only the USA is doubting here, but also the adversaries like China, Russia, and so on. They are also thinking, hey, they are putting on a really big show for us. So either Trump, the president of America, secured the gold, and we need to keep an eye on that. This has a very dramatic impact on Bitcoin, folks. Let me know what you think about the massive movements here. Peace out.